Hey everyone, Kerrigan here. And in this video, we're going to talk about my experience with double jaw surgery, underbite correction, or also known as dual orthodontic surgery, dual orthogmathic surgery, dual double jaw surgery, dual orthodontic surgery. So we're going to break this down into a couple sections. First, what is the surgery and why I got it? And then secondly, what had to happen before the surgery in order to have the surgery? And then third, what the surgery was like and the recovery process timeline, which will probably take up the bulk of this video. And then finally, some items that were critical to my recovery that I should have bought beforehand. So first, what is dual jaw surgery and why did I get it? Well, double jaw surgery is pretty self-explanatory. Some type of operation done on both jaws. It could be due to a injury, overbite, but in my case, it was because I had a genetic underbite. Now, when I was about 16, 17, I was kind of done growing for the most part, but the face, I guess, for guys continued to develop for like a couple more years afterwards. So from the ages of like 17 to 19 or so, I started to develop an underbite. Now, at first, when I got my braces off when I was maybe 15 years old, my bite was fine. But as I got older, my lower jaw continued to grow and my upper jaw didn't. This resulted in, at first, my teeth biting down on each other, which caused some filing and some discomfort. And then eventually my lower jaw continuing to grow out, causing some serious problems. Now, it kind of resulted in a bit of a physical insecurity, but more than anything, it was actually hurting. You know, the way that I think about it is if I have a hip problem that's causing me to limp, as a result of that limp, I might develop a back problem. That's kind of what happens when I chewed. I started to develop muscular problems in my jaw that were causing headaches, jaw locking up, and just a lot of pain in general. Now, when I first investigated this process as a fix, I was like, no way, I'm not doing it. It's so barbaric. You gotta wear braces, you gotta have the surgery, you gotta have your teeth wired closed for 4 to 6 weeks. That's nuts, no way. And so I waited. And after about a year and a half, I realized I didn't have much of an option. It continued to get worse. And, you know, I had the means to have the surgery. I had good insurance, so I decided to go forward with it. So first thing that I did is I went and got my braces on. Now, it's kind of a scary process because you have to get your braces on before the surgery. And whether or not you'll even be approved by insurance is kind of unknown. Well, at least it was for me. I met with the orthodontist, and of course, he wanted to get braces on as soon as possible. Whether he had good intentions, I'm sure that he did. It was still really confusing for me because we hadn't talked to the jaw surgeon yet. After doing some research, I did realize that my surgery is typically covered by insurance, so I just kind of surrendered to the process and got them on. Now, the braces that I got were the clear kind, you can see here. And those were like $4,500, I think, for the whole care. So that's getting them on, the maintenance, and all that comes with getting braces. I had them on for about 10 months. And through that process, I'm still kind of unclear on the ins and outs of it, but they adjust the teeth to prep for the jaw surgery. I did notice some movement in my teeth, and it kind of almost made my underbite worse in order to prep it for the incision in a thorough process. I met with the jaw surgeon about a month prior to me being ready, and he looked at my x-rays and he looked at everything and was like, if you want this done, you're perfectly qualified, we can get you scheduled. And so we did. Didn't have a problem with insurance, no kickback. That was awesome because that would have been really expensive out of pocket, like 75 grand, I believe. I was able to take off from work, and I believe in February 2nd, I went under the knife. Going in, just like any other surgery, you meet with the surgeon, you meet with the staff. In this case, I had to get a COVID test. It came back negative, and they just prep you for surgery. I retain a lot of memory from processes like this, so I remember everything from going under to waking up. Unfortunately, when I woke up, and I hope that this isn't anyone else's experience, but I didn't respond well to the pain medication. Matter of fact, it was hardly helping at all. My biometrics, my heart rate, my body temperature, everything was sky high when I woke up, and I was in a lot of pain. So it took them a couple hours to get the pain under control, and all I remember is just feeling such a heavy weight in my face and just pain all over my body. I hope this isn't the experience that you have. I heard it's really uncommon typically this is kind of like a painless process when you wake up. For me, it wasn't, but they did end up getting the pain under control. Now, I stayed there overnight, maybe a total of about 16 hours or so, not very long. They give you some information on diet and, putting cold and heat on the jaw, and a little kind of general information regarding, a proper recovery time. This didn't help me a whole lot. I think the internet helped me more than anything. Reading forums and watching videos like this helped guide me to more modern techniques of recovering from a surgery like this. Day 1, 2, 3, 4 was basically just surviving for me. I wasn't in a lot of pain when I got home, but of course it was extremely uncomfortable. You can't talk. I couldn't talk. I could only make grunt noises. And of course, eating was a problem. If anybody knows me watching this video, my favorite thing to do is to talk, and my second favorite thing to do is to eat. So missing out on those was a sacrifice I had to make for the outcome. And that first week was especially difficult. Now, I iced for about 36 hours afterwards. So about a day and a half, I was constantly icing my jaw. I might have over-iced. I'm not entirely sure. I think I went a little bit too long, but everything was kind of a haze at that point. Icing was still very difficult because every ice pack I put on it melted within a couple of hours at the most. So what I did is I got some soft ice packs that might look something like this, and I would keep them on rotation. Now, getting them on my face, I wanted something moldable, not hard. So I would just put them on the side and tie a knot with I think I used a bathrobe belt. So just a little wrap that I tied in a knot that I could easily take down. And so I just kept that on rotation. After it was time to start applying heat, which is, I guess, around 2 days after, a day and a half after, I started using electric heating pads and also one of those reusable ice packs that you can fill with hot water. Week 1 was tough. I'm not gonna lie. I have a pretty high tolerance for pain and discomfort, and this certainly challenged me. I just tried to keep my brain busy and off of the pain and discomfort. Of course, watched plenty of movies, posted up, but I also walked as much as I could and got outside as much as possible. I wanted as much sunlight as I possibly could. I'm gonna talk a little bit about diet, but I'm not going to give any dietary advice, just my experience with diet and nutrition. When I first started on day 1, I wanted to get as much collagen as I could. So I get grass-fed hydrolyzed collagen from a website called True Nutrition. And I drank probably 60 to 90 grams of collagen every single day. I also drank some bone broth, which I'm going to tell you in a little bit why I had a problem with. And of course, all the basic macronutrients that I needed. I tried to get as much as I could, but not push myself either because my body needed to recover and not worry about too much digestion. A big tip that I can give you though is to stay hydrated. So I guess food is somewhat hydrating. It's primarily water. And if I wasn't eating much or even drinking much for that matter, I got dehydrated by day 2 and 3. If you can avoid this, please do. Get some electrolytes and pound them. I got sugar-free electrolytes from Amazon, I think from a company called Zeal. They offer a really good electrolyte powder that's tastes great and is sugar-free. Back to the bone broth. I definitely recommend bone broth. We made some ourselves from grass-fed knuckle bones, and we made a ton. And I put them in mason jars, put them in the freezer, and then every morning I would pull out a mason jar and thaw it out and warm it up. It was a nice treat, tasted great. It gave me, I put red mint sea salt in it. And of course, we had plenty of collagen. I would also mix in some organ powder, which if you're not a nutrition freak, totally disregard all this. But it was a great way to get my micronutrients in the morning, as well as some macronutrients. The problem at the time that I didn't know is that I had an allergy to onions. So we put onions in the broth and it made it taste great. However, I learned later after getting some blood drawn that I did have an onion allergy. What happened is after the surgery, I started immediately drinking this bone broth, and the reaction that I had was my nose would close up. And my nose was already challenged from the surgery because if you know, when you get a upper jaw surgery done, they take the jaw off, they saw it off, they pull it forward, and then bolt it back down with titanium plates. What I didn't really understand is that they actually take off the roof of your mouth too. So when the jaw is reattached, that roof has to heal around the edges. So if you blow air into that, then the air would actually go underneath the skin. It's exactly what I did. They told me not to blow my nose, and I tried not to. I couldn't breathe. My nose was swollen shut from the allergy reaction, and also there's blood and scab in the nasal passageway just from the surgery itself. What happened was I blew my nose probably a couple too many times. I tried to be as gentle as I could, but I guess I pushed air underneath the skin. And you can kind of see the result in this picture. Yeah, so that's real. The swelling had gone down some, and then it went back up from that inflammation. And it was painful. It felt like I started the whole process again, and it really sucked. This is unlikely to happen to you, but I still recommend getting a blood panel done to see what you're allergic to just in case. Week 2, things started to get a little bit more normal. It was still somewhat depressing. I was still on pain medication because of the inflammation that I experienced in week 1. It prolonged the pain. It made things a lot worse. But by week 2, I started to get into a rhythm somewhat. What I'm going to eat, what I'm going to do throughout the day. And I just kind of stayed busy. It's just a waiting game at this point, trying to stay patient. Week 3, I obviously am really missing food at this point. Just the thought of food and watching people eat and chew was tough. It was tough to watch. I love food, really love food. What I did is I consumed a ton of liquids, and I even blended beef at one point and poured broth into that beef and then strained it out and drank those for probably 2-3 times a day. A lot of beef protein shakes. I got my micronutrients from organ pills and things like that. Obviously, it's still a challenge to keep on weight. You're eating primarily liquid, and it's also hard to consume a lot of macronutrients just because you're in a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain, and it's inevitable that you're going to lose weight. I lost a total of roughly 25 pounds. So I ended up at around 149 pounds at the end of the process, but that kind of worked its way in slowly. Week 3, more of the same from week 2, just a little less pain. I started to see some inflammation really go down, and I really liked the way that it started to look. I started to get kind of excited, but I knew that I had a long way to go. If I could give any advice, it would be very patient with the way that you look. My inflammation took a while to come down, and the residual swelling also stuck around for longer than I anticipated. But that's okay because it will go down. And I'll tell you later how to kind of help that process along as well. So by week 4, I was very excited. Week 4 also meant that I could get unwired. So some people have 4 to 8 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. It's different for everyone. My surgeon just said, be very careful that first week after getting the wires off, and just be responsible. And so we were able to do that after week 4. So I kind of already had level expectations at this point as to what it would be like. When I got unwired, I knew I wouldn't be able to do much, but at least I could, pull air through my teeth, because I actually had a splint as well as being wired closed. So that splint blocked more air, and it made it even harder to mumble and talk. At that point, I could kind of talk. It kind of sounded like this, but I could somewhat communicate with people, just a little bit uncomfortable. So I go into the surgeon's office and I sit down, and he's like, all right, everything looks good. You're healing well. Let's take the wires off. And he kind of prepared me, but I didn't expect such a weird feeling. He took the wires off, and my jaw moved down maybe a couple millimeters. I mean, barely at all. But after being closed for that long, and after experiencing that much movement and change in the muscle, it felt like my lower jaw fell right off. Like I didn't have a lower jaw. It was a really weird experience. And also tons of blood is like running through, and it's such a big change for the body that I started to get really lightheaded. And he was like, oh, by the way, some people pass out. And I'm like, okay, thanks for telling me. But it was actually kind of a cool feeling. I guess it makes some people nauseous. It felt great to me. Immediately, we had to put rubber bands back on, really tight rubber bands. And also, he had to keep the splint in. So I had about another week to go before I was really free from all the hardware. But through that week, I still got to kind of experiment with some soft foods, which was great. I came home and immediately started cooking up some food. I realized pretty quickly that the food has to be basically almost a liquid, but not quite. It's got to be mush for me. And I took a baby spoon, and I think I got some pasta. I boiled it up, which is like my favorite meal, cassava pasta and beef. And I mushed it all up and still couldn't get it in between my teeth. But I was bound and determined. I kind of knew what to expect here. So I figured out a way to basically get the baby spoon up to the very small gap between my teeth and just kind of pull it through until I got a taste of food. And when that taste hit my tongue, my sister was with me, and I was just like, I started crying. I was so happy. Like, it tasted so good after not having real food for a while. What happened after that was kind of more of the same. So just working on my jaw as I was eating, but not pushing it past pain or anything like that. And after about a week of soft foods, I was able to actually get a spoon into my mouth, which was awesome. But then I got the splint taken out. So week 5, the splint comes out. It's just rubber bands and braces. And I felt really free. I could kind of get a better idea of what my mouth was going to look like, but I still had a long way to go in terms of swelling. And that was the last time I saw the surgeon, was after week 5. I emailed him a little bit with some random questions, but from there on out, it was just the orthodontist. So monthly, I would go in and see the orthodontist. Now, I don't know if this is going to work for you guys or if it was even a good idea. I'm not giving any advice here. But what I did after seeing the orthodontist for the first time after the surgery is they would say, okay, we'll see you in 4 weeks. I would go to the counter and I would schedule my next visit. They would say, okay, 4 weeks is this date. And I would say, well, actually, do you have a week before that open? And they would almost always would say yes. So doing that, 10 times for every appointment before and after the surgery saved me about 10 weeks. Not recommending it. I know when teeth move really fast, it can be dangerous. I'm certainly not giving any advice there. My teeth were perfectly comfortable. The adjustments were minor. We weren't changing much. We were just holding the teeth in place, and I wasn't really in much discomfort. So I felt fine doing it and trimmed off some time. I did this for about 6 months, and I should also mention by week 7, I was chewing steak. I was perfectly comfortable with it. I still had some jaw discomfort. My jaw got tired, but I built that strength up, and it was so much easier after week 7, week 8, week 9. Now, stretching my jaw in the morning is something I tried to do. I still stand in front of the shower and run warm water on it and just stretch, do some movements. And I still didn't have the full mobility until about week 8 or 9. But at that point, it didn't really matter. I could eat what I wanted to eat. The real discomfort was just the braces and some residual swelling. And I had also lost a lot of weight at that point, and I looked really, really skinny. So I was excited to get some weight back on, build the jaw muscles back, build my body back, and just get back to normal. 6 months later, so literally yesterday, I got my braces off. I had really been anticipating this, and it felt like forever to me. And I also know that this process takes like 3 to 4 years for some people, 2 years. I think my whole process was 14 months, and that's really uncommon. I did have braces when I was younger, so that helped because we didn't have to straighten my teeth. But I just had some great professionals working with me, and I stayed on top of my routine. So that may not be everyone's process, but even 14 months felt like forever. Now that the braces are off, I never have to go back to the surgeon, never have to go back to the orthodontist. I'm totally done. I still need to get a dental cleaning. My gums are raw right now because that orthodontist was not gentle taking those things off. So I made my dentist appointment for next week because there's still some staining in between the teeth and stuff like that I couldn't reach. So I'm excited for that, but I'm also just really happy with the final product. I love smiling. I'm comfortable with my smile. My jaw feels great. It still gets sore sometimes, but I can tell that it's soreness from the surgery, which has gotten so much better after 6 months. Chewing is perfectly normal. There's still some slight residual swelling up here. Nobody can see it. I only can feel it because it's my face, but nobody can really see it. However, I also know that my face will continue to kind of change and develop over the next 6 months to a year. The whole process takes quite a while. And also, I still have some numbness above my teeth and just in the upper jaw area. So I try to be mindful of that when I'm flossing or using my water pick, which I'm going to get into things that I recommend for this surgery, items and products that are like essential. But I try to be mindful of that numbness because my gums can't tell me if I'm hurting them. But it doesn't really bother me. Just kind of weird things like I'll be drinking a cold glass of water and inside my mouth it feels cold and it sends these weird nerve signals to outside of my face and it makes me feel like I have water on my face. So like for a while there I was drinking cold water and I would be like, because I thought I had water on my face. So none of that really bothers me. I'm really happy with the final result and I would do it all over again, honestly. I never have to worry about the continuous jaw pain and the headaches and just the general insecurity of it. I was just grateful to get it all over with. So that's kind of the timeline, and hopefully these pictures helped you understand what it might look like for you. Maybe not, it might be totally different. But what I do know is it happened a lot faster than I thought, and I'm just glad it's over. So let's talk about some things to buy before the surgery that will help a lot. Very first thing is when I got sent home from the hospital, they gave me this like big syringe with a rubber tip and was like, yeah, you're gonna eat out of this. And I was like, okay, we can give that a shot. And basically you stick the rubber tube in the back of your mouth, in between the gap in your molars, and that's how you eat for the next 4 weeks. And so I tried it. I got home and I'm like pulling this syringe, and I'm I've got the shakes, and I've got my protein shakes and things like that. I mean, it took 20 minutes to drink 16 ounces. It was ridiculous. I got really, really frustrated with that very quickly, to the point where I was like, I don't even feel like eating because it takes so long. So I came across an article online that I wish I had found earlier. It might have actually been a YouTube video, but it is a recommendation to buy like this tattoo squirt bottle or something. I guess it's used for other things as well, but I bought a ton of those, and those were a lifesaver. All you got to do is stick it up, between the molars, that gap, or at the end of your molars, I should say, and just squeeze the bottle. I mean, total lifesaver. So I'd have one bottle with water, one with electrolytes, and I'd also have another one for my meals. And that was a huge, huge game changer, and I saved a lot of time. The second thing was the nose problem. So I wish I'd have found this earlier, but most people, if you have the upper jaw surgery done, then you're going to experience a lot of cloggage in your nose. And I'm telling you, oh my gosh, I pulled out the first booger. It was like the size of my pinky nail. It was insane. So you're going to want to get that out. But again, you can't blow your nose. So you kind of have to let your body get it out its own way. But one product that I found that helped me a lot was like a baby nose booger sucker thing. And it helped me a ton, especially after I learned, not to blow your nose the hard way. So I highly recommend that. Ask your doctor about it. It's just something that I used, and he said it was cool. A thing that also helped me a lot was Epsom salt baths. So my body was really tense right after the surgery and for like 2 weeks after. But soaking in some Epsom salt helped relax those muscles and my body as a whole, and I really think that it helped a lot with inflammation. A couple supplements that I took for recovery were bromine, which is like a pineapple extract. It helps with inflammation and swelling. L-glutamine, I mentioned that earlier. Tons of collagen. Organ pills capsules that I would break open and put into broth. They taste fine, don't worry. It's like desiccated organs, just great for me to get my micronutrients. And also tons of omega oils. I got liquid omega oils and just dosed the crap out of those. I took a ton of those. That's going to help with recovery, overall inflammation. Again, I'm not a doctor, not giving any medical advice here, just telling you the supplements that I took that helped. Another product that I liked was like a face roller. I think if you search like Jade Roller on Amazon, they have all sorts of products that come up. I started using one of those around week 7 and was just really gentle, rolled it across the swelling, tried to push the swelling out. And that definitely helped it come down some, and it just felt good to massage my face. I'll drop some resources below. Would love to hear your experience and feedback on the video. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck.